loved the discussion. Of course, everybody is jealous. You get to do the startup segment, and they never disappoint. They give us the most interesting answers. So thank you for that, Resham. All the best. As Resham put it, I am going to be doing like the CFO discussion, which is supposed to be the more, hopefully we will get some really good answers over here. My panelists are almost actually already there. So I think I'm going to just begin by introducing all of them first. Now, first of all, thank you, everybody. This introduction is in alphabetical order, just to be like, it's from the team. The team has requested. Just to repeat again, I am Noor. I look after the editorial of BW Businessworld. With me today, we have Mr. Abhishek Gupta. He is the CFO of Livspace. We have Mr. Aditya Saraogi. He's the Group CFO of Birla Corporation. Mr. Dev Tripathy, who is the CFO of Philips India. And Mr. Dharmender Tuteja, which I'm hoping to God I have pronounced the surname correctly, is the
Yep.
CFO of Dalmia, Bharat. Dharmender, did I get it right? I'm going to stay with the
Yeah,
first
it was
names.
perfectly right.
Thank you so much. All right, now, as I said, the discussion needs to be serious because it's CFOs. I hate I said that myself, but well. Earlier today, we heard the finance minister present budget 2026 around three clear kartavya. I'm sure it's by heart to all of us by now, but she was clearly indicating accelerating and sustaining growth, building capacity to fulfill aspirations, and ensuring inclusive participation across sectors and regions. So overall, what we saw in the budget kind of fit into one of the three buckets, or at least was giving that long-term direction. And due to that, what stood out was not just what the budget announced, but how it chose to prioritize capital over consumption, systems over one-off relief, and long-term capability over short-term stimulus. Now, the reason I've given that summary is hopefully somebody will tell me, no, that was not exactly what it is. But at the heart of this transition, of course, sits the CFO, and this bunch of wonderful people over here will play like a pivotal role. No longer the custodians of numbers, but the steward of judgment, capital discipline, and enterprise-wide decision making on how we see policy move to PNL. So that's where this discussion is going to go to. How did all of you read the budget beyond the headlines? So what changes you will be making inside boardrooms, if any, in capital allocation, risk appetite, cost structures, maybe growth priorities? So the first question, and just to get this going, because we are kind of short on time, 30 minutes means nothing, especially with wonderful people such as yourself. The first question I love because I don't have to do any brain work. It is initial reactions from all of you. Now, if you strip out the announcement, bring it pure down to intent. When you look at what all we heard about today, what stood out for you? What really is that you're taking home? Shall we do this in reverse alphabetical order? So Dharmendra, that means you are going first.
Okay, sure. So if you look at the budget, I think no mega announcements which will make eyebrows raise, etc. But definitely kind of a very budget which is building the foundation for the future. So what do you expect from the finance minister when they are laying out the union budget? They have to boost the economic growth, keep the fiscal balance in check, attract foreign capital which you require. Of course, this year we have been affected, many sections have been affected by the foreign policies, etc., on the tariff tantrums, so protecting those sectors. So on these four sectors, I think finance minister has done reasonably good job. If you look at the focus on the manufacturing strategic sectors, if you look at the MSMEs or the infrastructure, all these are very, very good, and especially the power security and stability. All these are very focused long-term priorities and continuation of the priorities which have been there for many years. And secondly, if we look at the fiscal balance, of course, her abilities were limited by the personal taxation reduction done last year or the GST reduction done last year. But still, the debt to GDP ratio has been reduced marginally to next year to 55.6 compared to 56.1. Likewise, the net borrowings are also under check. The GDP, the fiscal deficit is also down from 4.4 to 4.3%, although they may be slightly higher compared to what the market was expecting. So we may see some kind of yields spiking up tomorrow. But overall, I think that she's done a very balanced job in terms of keeping the fiscal health in check. And if I see from our cement sector perspective, it has been hugely positive from a lot of announcements which she has done in terms of focus on the infrastructure, increase in the public capex, to 12.2 lakhs crores, which is 9% increase over budget estimates. But if I see from the revised estimates, it is in high single-digit growth. And allocation to all key sectors like PM Awas Yojana, both rural and urban, there's a huge increase from the revised estimates going forward. Likewise, roads, railways, all sectors have been quite positive. And likewise, building railway corridors and giving facility of the new scheme of carbon capture. So all these are very positive for the cement sector, and we still are quite bullish. On the indirect tax, of course, the expectation was that we'll see some mega reforms, reduction of the reduction of these slabs, etc. That didn't happen. Maybe the government's intent was that they'll be doing a lot of FTAs, which will keep the rate of effective rate of duty under check, and relief will come from that side. But still, a lot of things could have been done, which of course have been missed when new income tax act was announced. It was, of course, a simplified version, but no major substantive changes. It was a simplified version in a lesser number of pages. And people were expecting that this was the opportunity in this budget, a lot of new things will come out. But if we see only minor changes like buyback tax has been tinkered with, then MAT has been done changes, some changes have been there, but no major substantive changes which were expected have come. So likewise, some improvements could have been done. A lot of things have been done in terms of the ease of business. But in terms of the major reforms, land reforms, the power sector reforms, or the judicial reforms to reduce the litigations, etc., still some needs to be done. I am hoping that in the coming year, these things will get attempted.
All right, all right. Unfortunately, I feel that he has given out all the big takeaways that were there. Anybody wishes to add to that so that, we might just save up time, get into the discussion. Anything that you want to add? Aditya ji, maybe you or Dev ji.
Just a couple of points. I think Dharmender ji has pretty much covered all the aspects. Just a couple of points. One welcome announcement was the rationalization of customs duty and simplification of the custom duty procedure. So that was one area where not much reform had been done. So this was a very welcome step. And the major disappointment from a market standpoint was a figure of gross borrowing of 17.2 lakh crore. That was higher than what was being expected by the market at between 16 to 16.5 lakh crore. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but otherwise, in terms of fiscal math, the finance minister has done a very credible job. Even in terms of nominal GDP estimate, it's just 10%, which is very pragmatic. And another figure, just tax growth considered for next year is just 7.2%, which I would say is rather conservative. They could have been slightly more aggressive, but they've been very conservative. So I don't see any challenge in terms of achieving this figure. And we have to look at this budget from an overall perspective. In the last budget, income tax rates were brought down. That was expected to boost consumption. And then in the middle of the year, we had a major reduction in GST rates. So we have to view this budget in that context, right? So major shocks had already been given away by the government. So the increased allocation to the extent of 9% in terms of infrastructure, that bodes very well. The focus of the government is very clear. That's all I would say.
All right. Thank you so much, Aditya ji. Who wants to go next?
If I can add, Noor, so the long-term wealth creation comes from there is a huge contribution from the policy reforms. I can just remember once Mr. Raghuram Rajan had said that one day we should be reaching a state that where we can say we are not rich by nature, but we are rich by our policy. And that shows that this budget somehow, I think, establishes our long-term intent, the policymakers' long-term intent, where the focus remains on how the productivity, competitiveness, and resilience of the economy remains. So when it comes to healthcare, because I come from the healthcare side, yes, there are a lot of investments. The investments has increased by 9 to 10%, but unfortunately, and it was similar in similar line versus last year also. But still, the percentage of GDP what goes to healthcare is still very low, considering our the stark gap was in the demand side. Still, it is 1.9% versus government's own target of 2.5%. But that the industry asked in healthcare, what was there, like improvement of affordable care, the quality care and the access to care, and also on the digital front, because the digital front is because the high burden or expansion of the burden on outpatients as well as chronic disease. Because of that, digitalization is a crucial part. That piece, I feel the minister could have done a bit more, but significantly, I think there is a lot of improvement in terms of the policy side. There is also, when it comes to the direct tax and the finance fraternity, I must say that focus is there on simplification of tax norms. The best part, what I personally felt good, is the trust factor which we are showcasing to the taxpayers. That is really good.
Sure, sure. There is a stability of sorts. That makes sense. Abhishek ji, your turn.
Yes. So, hi, good evening, everyone. I think large points are already covered, but the key takeaways for me, which are different from my other panel members, they've already spoken. One is, the government is focusing on tourism in all forms. So, if you looked at the budget speech, whether it is medical tourism, whether it is spiritual tourism, or even social tourism, right? So, that's a very, very big push, and it is good for job creation in a very big way in a country where we still have about 5% unemployment. The second, from the internet and e-commerce space, I think the tax holiday for data center for 22 years, that is massive. That is unheard of, right? All the way up till 2047. So we'll have to read the fine print to understand what is going behind that thinking. And I also liked what Dharmender ji said, right? Laying the foundation for Viksit Bharat. So for the CA fraternity, the government is actually saying we will work with ICAI to come up CA Mitras, right, for MSME. Because, on the one side, they are saying we need to work on ease of living. And on the other side, they are saying we want to work on ease of doing business. But if you talk to MSMEs, and we work with MSMEs in a big way, right?
Yes.
They are all very, very constrained of compliance. They don't understand compliance and the regulations keep changing. So I think this aspect of coming up with CA Mitras will definitely help them to get services of CAs in an economical manner. And I can go on, like, for example, mental health and trauma center. There is a big skill gap we keep discussing with the academia. Yesterday, I was at IIT Kharagpur. So, education to employment, that skill gap, if they can get in foreign funding, right, and take up research in a very big way, because we hire team members and we literally have to train them again to become job ready, even if they are graduates from, good colleges, including chartered accountants.
All
So
right,
I
all
think
right.
this is a very, very good push towards the laying the foundation. There are more announcements on farmer income augmentation, AI in agriculture, education and gender parity. And they also want to, ensure that as we move towards 2047, there is a good fraternity of homegrown accounting and advisory firms outside of the big four. So I think these were the key takeaways over and above what my panel members have already mentioned.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, we got a lot of different perspectives, some of which we will go further into. I just want to pull back the public capex part of the discussion a little bit up. Very clearly, public capex was very firmly positioned at the center of growth in this budget. Now, how does something like this influence your own capital allocation decisions? Dharmender ji, probably we get you back in more from the infra manu standpoint, and then Aditya ji as well. How are you looking at maybe stuff like capacity expansion or long cycle investments?
If you see last couple of years, especially in the recent years, this capex as a percentage of GDP has suddenly gone up. It is now about 3%, which used to
Yeah,
be less than
correct.
2%, 1 to 1.5%. So this is a very significant jump, and of course now government is maintaining this above 3%. And this definitely augurs well, not only for cement, but many capital goods or other sectors which are dependent on this capex. And That is the reason, in spite of the new investments not yielding the proper return on capital employed, cement sector is still bullish in terms of adding new capacity. So all the bigger players, I think they are already adding more capacities. Overall, we expect capacity to grow up by about 7 to 8%, and the bigger players expect to increase capacity by 14-15% also. So that optimism is definitely there, and going forward, we expect all this cement as well as steel and other sectors which are dependent on public capex and the indirect linkages to economic growth will continue to.
All right, excellent. Aditya, would you
Yeah.
like to add to this?
Yeah, so when it comes to cement, there's not been any dearth of capex or capacity addition, despite the fact that industry as a whole, we are at about 70 odd percent capacity utilization. Yet, as Mr. Dharmender said, we have been the industry on the whole has been adding capacity very aggressively. So, in that sense, it is good that this is a conducive budget. It is conducive to the demand. Hopefully, with the expectation of the GDP growth of 7%, the cement demand should definitely be higher than that, slightly higher than that. So, that should bode well for the industry in terms of better capacity utilization.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much. After a while, we will take away our sectoral hats for a bit and like really get into what the budget missed. And the only reason I'm giving this heads up now is like, if you want to kind of put your minds to that. But right now, I do want to look at the supply side a little bit because in this budget, of course, again, it has doubled down not just on the manufacturing ecosystem, but also on the supply, the logistics side a little bit. Devji, would you like to come into this again? Where do you see or any impact you're seeing where supply chain risks still limit or, we are not kind of, the budget could have done a little bit more maybe?
Yeah, I think no, Noor, the good part the budget has taken care is in spending or investing in the capex side, connecting or rejuvenating the waterways, updating the tier 2, tier 3 cities as growth engines. But one thing which also is which could have been done better is to focus on the currency, which has impacted a lot, has deteriorated a lot in the recent days. And you see, India is in a place where a lot of the technology access and high-end equipments, we still have a dependency to import. Now, unless we know, there is a lot of expectation that the minister will discuss about that one, and there will be some relief around custom duty, so that we can really look into accessible healthcare access side. That part I feel was missing, and that's also has an impact to many of the industry which still are dependent on the technology or the capital goods from the still to import from outside.
All right, excellent. Now, beyond capex, beyond capex, manufacturing and logistics, growth, of course, doesn't happen in isolation. But the good thing was that the budget also kind of looked at the health of the broader ecosystem. And Abhishek, you kind of pointed to this a little bit earlier. But MSME is not just the last budget, rather, it's been a continuous focus for like a few years. But this year, the budget really has sharpened its focus on creating scale-ready MSMEs, and now the allocations done for MSME growth. Now, for a platform that depends on a wide vendor and contractor ecosystem, how important is this for managing working capital, execution risk, balance sheet stress?
See, it is extremely important. Now, when you talk to MSMEs, their biggest challenge is credit, right? Which is the working capital and cash. The second biggest challenge is regulation. And the third biggest challenge is, getting the payment cycle going from their ecosystem. Now, if this 10,000 crore SME fund was to be implemented in its true shape and form in terms of what the policymakers are thinking, and if the MSME sector is given some professional help, whether it is from the CA fraternity or otherwise, to take care of their regulation, and if the government can also relax some element of compliance, I think combination of these three will definitely come in very, very handy because, all said and done, MSMEs contribute to 30% of GDP, right?
That's all.
Manufacturing is in that range. So I think we in our top of mind conversations, MSMEs never figure. It is always agriculture followed by manufacturing, followed by services. Services is growing 9%. The thing about agriculture also is, and I want to just bring up the point that Dave mentioned on the things that the budget could have done better. When it comes to priority sectors like education and agriculture, right? They are still at 1.5, 1.6 lakh crores. Defense is going up for the right reasons. I'm not saying defense should not go up. Defense is going up 20, 21%, right? It's now touching 6 lakh crores. So the thing is, we still need a lot of emphasis on priority sectors. To my mind, MSME, agriculture, and education are these three, which
Mm.
I think definitely there is scope for more to be done.
Mm.
However, I don't want to take away the credit from the government,
Mm.
considering what they did in GST 2.0, about 2.5 lakh crores, and income tax about 1 lakh crore, right? For them to still manage the fiscal discipline and go to a 4.3% fiscal deficit, and still take up capex by 11% is kind of credit to the government. But there has to be a time when these three sectors also see some love beyond.
More love.
Yeah.
And चलें ठीक है बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया like this kind of handles a lot of it. Mrs. Now priority sector Mrs. He gave us three, so Abhishek ji in a way kind of kick-started that answer. Dave has already commented on it, but Dharmender ji, maybe you, Aditya ji, anything that and you can take away the sectoral hat now, just look at it in totality. Even personal tax is something you can comment on if you wish to. CFOs will have a role on in understanding how that impacts consumption at a later point. But just what could we have done better in this budget? Dharmender ji, you first.
Sure. As I said, that some reform side we could have done better because we want private sector capex to increase. And one of the key bottleneck which large corporates they are facing is acquisition of land. Because a lot of issues come up, both state issues get involved. So that one sector which needs to improve. Second was on the interest rate. Although the RBI has been cutting down the rates for the last 1 year, but the transmission of these rates is not happening to the corporates because the bank's cost of financing is not coming down. So there is definitely non-level playing field in terms of the taxation of the FD interest rate or the debt funds compared to the equity funds. So something, and that was expected that this should get addressed, but that has not been addressed, should have been done. And in corporate sector, M&As are becoming quite common, but there are still issues to be addressed in terms of how to simplify, how to speed up the implementation of the or the execution of the M&A strategies. So there also, I think budget was left behind.
Excellent. Aditya, did you want to add? Otherwise, we'll go to close. Go ahead.
A few things come to my mind. The foremost being a lot of was being accepted given the sharp fall in rupee, and as mentioned in the economic survey also, rupee is hitting below the belt or below its fair value, its ruling. So something should have been done in terms of capital flows. There were some expectations that the sovereign funds will get exempted from the capital gains tax, so there was nothing on account. And even if no exemptions were considered, we are aware that there was a recent Supreme Court ruling which applied retrospective taxation on a very old transaction. So that created a lot of uncertainty in the regime. So at least there should have been some, stability, some kind of announcement that could have, provided comfort to the foreign investor. So that was one. Secondly, there was some expectation that research and development, which in our country is just about 6.64% of the GDP as compared to 3 to 5% in countries like China and India, government will come out with a program to incentivize that. So there was no announcement in that regard also. And thirdly, as Mr. Tuteja also said, the ease of doing business, there's a whole lot that can be done in this regard. Although there was a fleeting remark that the central government is working with the states to make relaxation, but I can tell you by our own experience that there's a whole lot of bureaucratic delays that happen not only in land but in almost all the arenas of the business. And
All right. Thank you so much.
if the large corporates like us feel the trouble, you can imagine what kind of problems must be faced by the MSME sector.
All right, all right.
Indeed.
Our next panelists are nearly joining in. I do want to have the last, like this, where what we could have done better. I do want to end on a slightly, we started on a good positive note. It's a good budget. So we started on a good positive note. So very quickly, any last words from, do one round again. I did not want to do it like it's like that by panel, but still it ended up being like that by design. And I really don't want to say Dharmender ji first in this one. I feel like he'll come off the screen.
Yeah, I'll supplement
Abhishek ji.
what. Yeah, I'll supplement 30 seconds for what Abhishek told in his first remarks that this data center income tax exemption, this is a radical move and very, very has profound linkages in the backward sectors like it requires a lot of power, real estate, construction. Then the data sovereignty or integrity is safer in your own hands within the country. Plus skill development, a lot of IT hardware and electronics manufacturing. There are a lot of linkages of this in the country. So in the long run, medium term, it's a huge, huge positive, which will of course take some time to percolate.
Thank you so much, Dharmender ji. Who goes next?
Yeah, see,
So I
from
go
my
next,
perspective,
Noor.
I think sorry, Dev, go on.
So no, I think overall it's been a balanced budget, Noor, but I would have loved to see some discussion around per capita income,
Yeah.
so that it would have helped. No, of late we are seeing a K-shaped pattern in consumption, where the affluent are spending more on luxury homes, high-end cars, and all those things, whereas the rest of the society is actually conservative. So a per capita focus could have helped. But overall, if you'll ask me, I feel it is like a long-term vision and a growth with the stability budget. That's the focus been.
Yeah, see, from my perspective, the big picture is more and more this government is very proactive through the year when it comes to, reforms and policy. So this big budget day is becoming more a foundation laying platform for Viksit Bharat. Right now, because whatever they could have done when it comes to say GST or labor code or quality checks or deregulation or inflation management, they've done it through the year, right? So I think this iconic budget day is more now relegated to like how they've just now mentioned a key sectoral focus, and they know where the gaps are, whether it is pharma, whether it is semiconductors, right? Whether it is electronic component manufacturing or rare earths. And the thing is, they also want to revive legacy clusters. Like, for example, in my previous avatar, I was in Mintra. All the khadi, handloom, right? Textiles. So all these legacy clusters also being revived is like, balancing both, looking at the future and yet not forgetting the rich legacy and pride of Bharat.
At least we get great headlines, making it like, this whole foundation and sector focus, everything looks nice. The rest of the year is what it is, but at least budget day looks really nice and promising. Aditya ji, I think you're wrapping this up for us.
Yes. So I would just say that despite such a volatile environment and headwinds, if we are managing to grow at 7% real GDP, that is quite credible, and the whole, the government needs to be congratulated on that. We just need to, and in this budget, another thing that was commendable was the focus on employment generation and upskilling. So that was a very, very positive thing. If we just take care of certain small things like capital flows or etc., I think we'll be in a much stronger position.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, my dear panelists. You stayed to the time and you gave me excellent comments. Thank you so much. On behalf of Team BW and everybody who's tuned in today, have a great rest of the year, great rest of day. Wonderful Sunday for us.